Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March webinar for Together Women Rise. My name is Wendy Fradlin. I'm the Communications and Membership Director on staff at Together Women Rise. And let me just say, I'm a pinch hitter tonight. Unfortunately, our volunteer moderator was unable to join us due to a family emergency, so bear with me. We want to welcome you, whether you are an existing member, supporter of Together Women Rise, or you are new to our organization and our mission. Thanks for being with us tonight. Just to tell you, for those of you who are new, a little bit about Together Women Rise. So we describe ourselves as a powerful community of women and allies who all share the common passion for achieving global gender equality. And we have a unique model in that we come together in community to learn about the challenges and the issues that women and girls face around the world. And we donate and give grants to support organizations that are working to empower women and girls in low-income communities in the global South. And along the way, we build this really strong community and these powerful connections amongst ourselves and with women and girls around the world. So tonight, you're part of our community, attending our webinar, and thank you for joining us. Our model is based on collective giving by harnessing the power of coming together, all of us giving what we can. We truly can make a large impact. So if you're interested in supporting Together Women Rise tonight or in the future, please visit our website, and where you can also learn more about our organization. And our site is togetherwomenrise.org. And as I try to juggle letting people in, moderating, and putting things in the chat, I will put the website in the chat for you. So hang tight here. I'm going to let a few more people in. This reminds me of the early days when we were still learning how to use Zoom when the pandemic started, and we were trying to do all these different things at once. All right. Couple of Zoom reminders, even though we're all very familiar with them now, please stay on mute while our presentation is going on. If you do have questions, please put them in the chat and we will get to as many questions as we can at later on in the webinar. And Zoom offers a closed captioning option that you can find on your toolbar. So if you'd like, please feel free to use that. So it's time to turn to our program for tonight. And at these monthly webinars, you really have the opportunity to learn about a specific challenge or issue that's faced by women and girls in low-income communities, as well as the important work that all of us are doing in supporting Together Women Rise and helping to fund what we call our featured grants every month. So this particular month, we're focusing on an issue about the impact of water scarcity. And I'm not sure I fully realized, but water is a women's empowerment issue. And we're going to learn a lot more about that with a great organization called Save the Rain that operates in Kenya. So first, we are going to watch a short video that Save the Rain has provided to us. And then I'm going to have my conversation with Kelly Coleman from Save the Rain.
Nasinyari gets up well before dawn. In this remote village in northern Tanzania, the quest for water robs women of their rest. She tethers empty plastic drums to her 3 donkeys. They can carry about 200 liters of water. She has to make this trip every other day. Water is life. We cannot be without it. Necessity forces women to make this journey and it is devastatingly easy for predators to take advantage of this fact. Sometimes she'll get all the way to the river and find it dry. She must trudge further upstream, hoping to find some, using more precious time and energy. By the time she gets home, more than half the day is gone. She stores the water carefully in the small cooking hut. There's no time to rest. There are clothes to wash and hungry mouths to feed. The walk was merely the first task of the day. Now the work really begins. Nasanyari's story is far from unusual. Water is life, and everyone should have access to a clean, reliable source. The fact that 2.2 billion people worldwide don't is the global water crisis. Where Save the Rain operates, water is women's work. They walk for hours to get it. The walk is not safe, and neither is the water, if they find any. Contaminated sources seep disease into the home. Too many girls sacrifice an education to meet the household's water needs. Too many women experience physical and sexual violence on this walk. Every day, women and girls spend 200 million hours searching for water. Luckily, the solution falls freely from the sky. All we have to do is catch it. Save the Rain builds rainwater harvesting systems on primary schools and people's homes, bringing safe, clean drinking water right to their backyards. When just 1 inch of rain falls on a 500 square foot roof, 300 gallons of water can be harvested. A woman walking for water might carry 10 gallons. It would take her 30 trips to collect what 1 inch of rain could deliver to her home. In the hierarchy of human needs, food security sits right alongside water. And so with each domestic rainwater harvesting system we deliver, we build a greenhouse that feeds the family with nutritious leafy greens all year round. When water and food are solved, people can step into their agency and govern their own rise to abundance. Women need not sacrifice their lives and their children to the enslavement of water. And when you give women back their time, they can manifest their unlimited potential to be agents of social change. The team that builds our domestic rainwater harvesting systems are all women. Each has lived the scarcity that her work now solves. Each has received a tank at home and has felt the ripples of transformation change her life. Knowing you are only ever one step away from being a giver or receiver builds a bridge from scarcity to possibility. When these women construct a tank, what is actually being built is much greater. A better future, dignity, empowerment, education, abundance. Water touches everything, so water changes everything. We interviewed over 1,000 beneficiaries, and here's what we found. 96% of women reported never having to leave home to search for water, nor did their daughters. 98% of families with a tank at home recommitted to their daughter's education, and 95% of their children have a perfect attendance record at school. 96% haven't been sick since their systems became operational. 91% now easily cover their cost of living and their children's school fees. They reported doubling their livestock count and having enough income to join lending cooperatives in their village. When we measure our victories, we look at our statistics. But the real gold lies in the stories. Generations of daughters who will never know what it means to walk for water, and who get to take that safety for granted. Saving rain saves lives. Together Women Rise, on behalf of all those whose lives will be changed, thank you for helping us build a future where hope and opportunity grow with every drop harvested and every seed sown. Thank you.
Asanteni, Mungu awabariki. Thank you.
Wow, I don't know about you all, but that video, especially that end, makes me smile. So Kelly, we're really pleased to have you here tonight. Kelly Coleman is the executive director and co-founder of Save the Rain. Since 2005, Kelly has dedicated her life to supporting communities in Africa to gain access to clean drinking water, food and economic security, environmental restoration, and women's empowerment. And as you can see in the video, and I'm sure we're going to hear more about it, all of those things can be connected with the work of Save the Rain and the project that we all are funding. So Kelly, thank you for being with us tonight. Just a reminder to everyone that that we will have a Q&A session after our conversation with Kelly, so please put your questions in the chat. All right, Kelly, I need to find you and get you up on my screen here. There we go. All right. Hi, Kelly.
Hi.
How are you
First of
tonight?
all, I just have to say that screen filled with women's faces is like such an empowering and beautiful visual. So I'm just so grateful to everybody who's here because that was a great way to, end an evening or end a day. So thank you to everyone who is here.
So I'm talking about the video and the women in Africa that made me smile, and you're commenting on all the incredible women that we hear in the Together Women Rise community in the US and on this webinar. And both are incredible, but let's talk about Save the Rain. You are one of the co-founders, and your approach is really transformational. Can you tell us what inspired the creation of Save the Rain and how things have evolved since you began?
Sure. So Save the Rain started around my mom's dining room table. A man, we invited a man to family dinner, and he had just returned from Kenya, and he gave us the statistics of the global water crisis. And I come from a family of incredible criers and equal doers. And I also live in a place that has some of the cleanest water on the planet. And we
Oh,
Lost the audio.
Kelly, can you just unmute yourself?
there we go.
There we go.
Is that
Thank you.
my back?
Yes, you are. I think in my trying to mute some of the participants, I inadvertently muted you.
That's okay. So yeah, so Save the Rain started around my mom's dining room table. It'll be 20 years ago this year. And we just kind of cried our way through the statistics and realized, that a child dies every 15 seconds from the global water crisis. And that if we looked to some ancient technologies, we could probably participate in stopping some of that. And then I think, like most of us, when you commit to something, then all of a sudden, sort of, all the stars align in the universe, um, and one thing after another, the organization got registered, and we met a woman who was supporting a community of farmers in Tanzania, and had said that she had written to them and asked if they could request anything in the world, what would they ask for? And they replied, a rainwater harvesting system. And so she asked if we would come and help facilitate that. And even though we didn't know what the heck we were doing and we had no idea how we were going to achieve this, we said yes and wrote a letter to 200 friends and family, acknowledging completely transparently that we didn't know what we were doing, but we were going to try. We bought every book we could find on rainwater harvesting systems, and off we went. That original recipient, the original farming community, the head of that recipient group, today, well, his name is Joseph, and today he is the country leader for Tanzania and leads the entire effort. You know, yeah, and for him, it was what was given to his community. He wanted to facilitate giving to everyone. Um, so, so fast forward, what does that look like today? Well, when we first started, Joseph's children were small, and today they are grown. And his children now have children and work alongside him to govern the organization.
That that is incredible. I mean, many of us may think of doing something like what you did, but you actually made it happen. And, an excellent example of when you ask women what they really need, they'll tell you what they need. And, you were able to step in and provide that. So we saw, a powerful introduction in the video, but I wonder if you can elaborate some more on what access to clean water through these rainwater harvesting systems, how does that change the life of the women and girls in these communities?
Yeah, I think that the pyramid of human need, oddly enough, floats on a foundation of water. So access to clean water is fundamental for survival, and it affects everything from education to health, gender equality, economic security. Safety, I think, is probably one of the biggest issues it addresses. Abundance, all of it hangs in the balance when access to clean water is absent. There were statistics in the video, but I think that some of the statistics that shocked us the most in our, efforts for metrics and evaluation were that 90% of women were terminating their daughter's education due to the need for her to participate in the search for water. And for most of those girls, that transpired in the third grade. And the reason why it happened at such a young age was from kindergarten to through the second grade, children only needed to be in school half the day. Once you reached the third grade, you needed to be in school all day. And once that happened, girls were no longer able to participate in the family's need for searching for water. So their education was terminated. And then once water became present at home, 98% of families recommitted to their daughter's education for as long as her potential allowed. So it had nothing to do with access to education. It had all to do with access to water. I think the other piece that sort of in our desire to understand the problem better was to really understand what happens to women in the search. And that's that, 99% of the women that were interviewed walked for water every day. 63% of them searched for water between 7 to 16 hours a day. And the harshest reality was that 69% of them had experienced physical or sexual violence during that search for water, and most of them more than half a dozen times. So I think that we don't tend to tie water to this concept of safety, But women are being forced to search for a resource, one that they can't survive without, but the other is to weigh the balance of physical safety versus the need for clean water. How do you measure those two and come out in a win-win situation? So I think that, you know, most of us on this webinar get up every day and walk to a tap. And I really truly believe that the world needs to change their definitions, because what is available to some of us should be available to all of us. That's true equity.
Absolutely. So many issues tied to water, and providing something as simple as clean water can have such a profound impact. I love the stats about, the girls not needing to stop going to school. Their families can't send them to school simply because they need them to collect water. This project is not just about providing water, though. It is also about providing some economic independence for the women. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. I think probably the best way to highlight this is to share a story about a woman who works for us named Elizabeth. So Elizabeth is from a village called Nkoancio, and their walk for water was somewhere between 10 and 13 hours a day on average. And they live in an area where the groundwater has severely high levels of fluoride, which causes, we put fluoride in our water for strong bones and good teeth. But when fluoride exceeds a certain level, it becomes toxic. And water that women can search 11 to 15 hours a day for ends up actually killing their children after 4 years of consuming it. It leaches calcium from the bones. It affects the spinal cord. So Elizabeth lives in one of these villages where the fluoride issues are really bad. And she began to work with us in 2015. Shortly around the time that she began to work with us, she also had a baby girl named Aviella. What was incredible was we built a rainwater harvesting system on the school that Aviella inevitably attended, and a system on Elizabeth's home, her mother. What became amazing through the work was to watch Elizabeth become both the bread maker and the breadwinner. And what was even more remarkable was to watch Aviella step out of the path her mother had lived into a future that nobody could even have imagined. Because Aviella has no idea what it is to walk for water. She has no idea what it is not to have water at school. She is growing up understanding that water and safety are something that she expects as her God-given right as a human being, and that women can and do take a place of power and agency in their community to affect change. And Elizabeth has built thousands of rainwater harvesting systems. And if we ripple out, the ripple effect of Aviella times thousands of daughters, we begin to see what generational change actually looks like. And I think a big part of it is changing our expectations. So this has been an extraordinary moment to just kind of look into what this, at our 20-year mark, what this next generation is going to look like.
And isn't that the goal? We want the next generation to be able to have a better life, and that her daughter doesn't even know about the issues and the challenges of going for water.
Yeah.
Now, the other part of this project is that you are helping families grow their own food with residential greenhouses. So how does this dual approach work? Providing the water and the agriculture. That must have an impact on food security, health, these communities.
Absolutely. So food is probably as equal a leveler as water. But you can't have food without water. So creating a hand-in-hand approach was really imperative. And it was an interesting dynamic because the residential greenhouse project was born in the middle of the pandemic. Um, to make matters even worse, Tanzania and Kenya were experiencing a locust infestation in the middle of the pandemic. So if it didn't feel biblical before, it certainly felt biblical then.
Yeah.
And we were on a Zoom call and talking about what locusts do, which is, eat everything green in sight, and how that could be prevented to mitigate a potential famine was really the goal. I had just put a greenhouse up at my house. And so I put this Zoom meeting on my phone and was sort of just like doing this with my phone around my greenhouse. And then a week later, Joseph had designed a prototype. And a couple of years later, thousands of them have been constructed. They cost us less than $150 a greenhouse. And I think what we learned was by providing this space for food to grow, as well as seedlings and education for permaculture agriculture, we watched families move into a space of safety and the potential for abundance in a way that we couldn't anticipate. Prior to the greenhouses, mothers were forfeiting about 88% of mothers interviewed were forfeiting about half of their food intake at least 3 weeks a month to be able to provide for their children. And now that the greenhouses are present, we've got women, an enormous amount of women who are harvesting daily to be able to sustain and feed their families. And I think that, as women, the great nurturer, our desire is to just make sure all the bases are covered. And this was the best way for us to do that.
Um, let's talk a little bit about specifically what this project that Together Women Rise is funding, through our community's donations. How exactly will you be able to expand, your program, or what kind of an impact will this grant have for you and what you can do?
Yeah, so we are so deeply grateful to have been selected as a partner with Together Women Rise, because I think that, the model that we created for the Women's Water Initiative, it is exactly that. It's about women rising together, beyond borders. And this grant will, on paper, it's 100 systems and 100 greenhouses and 100 new women. But really, if we look at the thousands of ripples that get created from one tank, it has this generational impact that is really, you know, immeasurable. Because these systems that we have created, they have 150 to 200-year lifespan. So the family may no longer be there, the house may no longer be there, but the tanks will be there and the rainwater harvesting system will be there, and anybody will be able to benefit from that in the future.
So I'm kind of jumping to a question in the chat because it seems to be appropriate right about now. Can you describe to us how the rainwater collection system works exactly?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So rainwater harvesting is an ancient technology and something that has been used for millennia. And the premise is that you take an impervious surface, like a roof, and create a method for collection through a guttering system, which then passes through what's called a first flush diverter. And what that does is collect water that is initially used to rinse the roof clean. And then the rest of the water is entering into a storage tank. Because of the first flush diverter and because the water isn't actually ever reaching the ground, and the method with which the tanks are constructed, where the draw out of the tank is higher than the bottom. So any sediment that could get into the tank, drops to the bottom, and then you're only drawing above that. It's a super simple process. It requires a roof, some gutters, a small filtration system that's totally passive, and a storage tank. And ours are constructed out of a thin-walled mortar mix with some wire reinforcement. So all materials that can be found in developing countries for very little money.
And
And
they're being built by
sorry.
women.
And they're being built by women. They take us 6 days to construct, and they cost us about $500 to build. And the
And they
goal
last a long time.
and yeah, they last a really long time. A really, really long time. The first system that was built 20 years ago still functions as well today as it did when it was first constructed.
So this is hugely sustainable.
Yeah, and
How many, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
How many of these rainwater systems has Save the Rain constructed now?
About 8,000. So we've got 200 plus women building every single day in different geographical regions that I think one of the most extraordinary things about it is we have a model within Save the Rain called the receiver giver model. And it is that all of our builders started as receivers of assistance. So once they've received their system, they've learned how to construct a system. Some of them get hired to go build more systems. And the idea is that none of us are ever really more than a couple of steps ahead of the other or a couple of steps behind. And I think creating that bridge where women are showing women that solutions and agency is possible is hugely impactful in how well the project works.
Yeah. It's such a simple and effective idea and a sustainable solution. Have other countries, other areas, has government looked at, replicating your model in any way?
So I think there are lots of organizations focusing on water, but there aren't a whole lot of organizations focusing on bringing clean water home. I think that a lot of organizations are looking for a centralized solution, and we are decentralizing all of it. We're saying if you and I both have a tap at home and access to water at home, then so should every other woman, mother, grandmother, so on and so forth. And this is really the simplest and easiest way for us to make sure that that happens.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
are
mean,
other organizations, are other areas replicating it?
yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There was a project in Thailand done years ago that attempted this method as well. Um, and our goal is to not take any proprietorship over any of it because it's an ancient technology. So if you like it, feel free to copy it.
To use it. I actually did see someone saying in the chat that they thought that they could actually, replicate something like this.
I have 3 of them on my house, so I say go for it. So
Right. Now the systems cost $500 for you, to build. Does the receiving family have to contribute anything towards
yeah,
that, or?
the receiving family participates in the construction, and that's our way of making sure that the receiver understands how the system functions.
Mhm.
They also have to supply rocks for the foundation and water for the construction. They have to guarantee that there's safety at the house for the women builders. And I think many times what happens is, people don't anticipate that construction is a woman's job. And so there's always sort of this jaw-dropping moment when these women builders come out and start, um, plastering tanks and pulling wire and really showing off just how strong and incredible they are.
Is it largely women that are building the tanks?
All the residential systems are built by women.
Wow. Now, you also do build for schools,
We do.
tanks for school. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, it's actually how we started. We started by building a system for this community of farmers. I went on a walk one day with his children and came across a school with hundreds of buckets sitting in the middle, and then quickly, in my naivety, realized there was no water at school. And then a child came out and started to hit a tire well. So it sounded like a bell. And then hundreds of kids came out, grabbed buckets, and we went on a, you know, 2-hour journey to a stream that smelled like human waste. And I, witnessed all these children just scooping their hands with this dirty water into buckets. And that's the water that was used for the school's cooking, drinking, and sanitation use. So Joseph's team came to us and said, "What you've given to us, we'd like to give to others. Could we build a system on the school?" And we've worked in 85 communities since then in the last 20 years. And the systems that are built on schools are much larger. They're 150 to 200,000 liters. And they not only sustain the school, they also sustain the community residents around them.
Yeah, wow. Um, Someone put in the chat wanting if you could do the conversion for those of us who don't have the metric system about how much would an individual family's tank hold in gallons, say.
Sure. So, I'm going to do the math too. So the
We can
tank,
put you on the spot there.
that's okay. So, if I remember it correctly, the residential systems are 3,500 liters in size, which is, if I'm doing my math right, just shy of 1,000 gallons. Um, yes, and that has the capacity to sustain. What we're finding is it's far beyond a family just of 8. What is happening is women are, once they've received a tank, are sharing that resource with neighbors, sisters, mothers, grandmothers, and in some circumstances, you can find, 30 to 40 people dependent on one tank. I
Okay.
think that what was remarkable in this last little while, I just returned from Tanzania last week and sat with a group of women builders um, who had really just known that the more they shared the water, the more they believed the rain would fall. And it was just sort of the power of women in cooperation, um, knowing that taking care of others was part of, you know, taking care of oneself. So it was pretty extraordinary.
There's a very, very good question. What about the dry
The
season?
dry season.
What about droughts? What
Yep.
about climate change? Is that having any impact on, the
Sure.
situation?
So tanks are generally sized to be able to sustain dry seasons. That's sort of how the technology functions. And of course, with global warming and climate change, we are watching huge shifts in, rain patterns and so on and so forth. What's kind of incredible is it when an inch of rain falls on 1,000 square foot roof space, you can collect 600 gallons of water. So it's an incredibly efficient way for water collection. So it doesn't take much for you to be able to fill these tanks. And then I think the beauty of what I've witnessed in the last couple of decades is that the level of efficiency and awareness and consciousness in their governance is really what's just truly remarkable. So we talk about it in our house all the time, how many people, leave the water running when they're brushing your teeth. All those little bits that's, waste is not a part of their equation because the search is a very, it's a reality. It's not very far. Also, the tank itself becomes a vessel. Even in moments where there isn't rainfall, the ability to collect and store at a larger capacity becomes an agent for change as well. Oh, I lost you. There we go.
Do all the roofs have gutters? I think I heard you say that you construct gutters on the roofs when you.
Yeah, so our women builders also build gutters. And that's because they build gutters and something called splash guards. And that's because there is actually a really beautiful efficiency to the way we build rainwater harvesting systems. And most gutters that are available for sale won't withstand a big rainfall where you want to catch every drop. So we make our gutters out of galvanized steel, and it's actually an incredible way to employ more women to bend gutters, and yeah, and that way it doesn't, I mean, you won't really find a plum building where you have a really good roof system that's level. So our gutters are used in a hanging method where we can do this conveyance of dropping the gutters a reasonable amount to make the water move towards the tank. And we can hang them on any roof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Tell me a little bit about what you plan for the future. You've done incredible things already, but what are your hopes for the future? What do you see next for Save the Rain?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't think I saw anything that came in the last 20 years. So I'm not sure. I'm really, I think that the truth of the organization is that, we very much are a one step, take one step, put one foot in front of the other. In our 20th year, we are, stretching to find our 2020 vision. Looking to the past to figure out where we've been and to the future to figure out where we'd like to go. What we do know is that together women rise. That's what we know. We know there is no greater statement than the name of your organization, and that expanding what we do in the Women's Water Initiative is a huge part of the marker of our future. Training more teams, building more tanks. This year, we are looking to double our construction from last year, and just wanting to create that ripple of change, not just for the women we work with and for the women recipients, but for the generations to come, in hopes that, one day we're no longer needed because the problem is solved. That's the goal.
As with
There'll
many.
always be there will always be things to do and cry about. That I have no doubt. And
Right.
so I would love it if one day we were long forgotten and, like in the very beginning, Joseph said, build a system on every house. And I said, every house? It's like,
Are you
every
sure? Can we
every
do
house?
that?
Can we do that? Well, we had seen this woman at 7 a.m. Walking down to search for water, and then we saw her 13 hours later on her way back. And I burst out crying and said, how can we just let this happen? And he said, well, we could build a tank on every house. And I said, every house? And 20 years later, if we can build it on every house, we will build it on every house, or we will help other people build it on every house. So
You're doing just that. Have you seen that having water at the schools for hygiene has helped more girls attend school during menstruation?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We work with some schools where just when the rainwater harvesting system is constructed, within weeks, the enrollment doubles. So a school that may have had 500 kids when we started has 1,000 kids by the time the tank is complete. And having water at school addresses issues around menstruation and the need to be supported in that way during that time. Um, you know, water changes everything because water touches everything, specifically a girl's development. So, yes, most definitely there has been an increase in how that is managed.
Another ripple effect for sure. I love the fact that, I mean, not only do we have many of our, members and supporters across the US, but these webinars also attract people from all over the world, including some of our past grantees. And we have one mama baby, Haiti, that is saying, can you come and do this for us? So, and several people are offering their volunteer services to you as well. Do you take volunteers?
Absolutely. I mean, we have worked with volunteer groups in the past. We have a wonderful relationship with Rotary International, where we've taken Rotarians to build systems and other corporations that have been sponsors in the past. We do have a corporate partner that pays all of our operational expenses. So we've done some team building with them. So, yeah. So absolutely. Feel free to email me. I have no idea, like you're asking me to envision the next 20 years. I would go good for the next month, but but we are always open because I think that if we've learned anything, you never know what miracle lies around the next corner.
Exactly. There's a question here. Could you envision a for-profit division of Save the Rain? Are there people who could pay for the water systems or greenhouses? So this is a member who is involved with World Bicycle Relief, and their bikes became so popular that the local community wanted to set up shops and sell them on a payment plan. Could you ever see something like that happening in your
So
organization?
so I mean, we have, when we first started the Women's Water Initiative, we invited women's cooperatives to use the construction as a mechanism for lending. And
Oh.
um and quickly kind of came to this realization that we were losing the potential for some recipients just by virtue of maybe some of the social issues that existed at home. And quickly kind of came back to the idea that the rain falls freely on every roof, and therefore every roof should have the capacity to harvest what nature gives them. So have people asked to be able to purchase? They have. Um, but what we noted was the way we shifted our model was our women builders are now part of a cooperative. And so a portion of their pay goes into this cooperative so that they can generate loans. A portion of the greenhouse grant, the large scale greenhouses that are built, the women that run them, there goes to fund more loans. So we looked at a for-profit model and then quickly realized that that wasn't where our skills could best be suited. And that we really kind of stood by this ideal that it needed to be something that was freely given to everybody.
Yeah. Well, there, now you just raised another point about the women forming these cooperatives and then using money to, to have loans. I literally think that you have touched on almost every issue that Together Women Rise has touched on, whether it is, economic livelihood and empowerment and girls, being able to attend school and, and then loans to, through cooperatives. You really are an excellent example of so many of the types of work we do. And in fact, I was talking with someone today that wanted to use your video in a presentation to sort of illustrate, the incredible work that's going on. I think I've covered, I think I have covered most, if not all, of the questions in the chat. But if anyone wants to take these last few minutes to just pop something in there that I haven't covered, and I want to give you the opportunity if there's anything else that you'd like to share with the group tonight.
I really just want to express my gratitude. I think that there's, this very present energy in the world that wants us to believe that we're alone in the dark. And it's moments like this where you see all these women gather in one place so that you're really reminded that you're not. And I can't express my gratitude enough for that. We all shoulder something, and to know that we actually have women out there that are shouldering it with us makes the journey just easier. And so I really want to express my gratitude for everything that Together Women Rise does, for recognizing organizations that are supporting women and girls. It puts my heart at ease and makes me feel like, we got this. We got this. I have 3 daughters, and so my desire for the world to reflect back at them, a world that marries up to their vision of what's right and fair. All of you that have attended this evening helped me do that. So thank you for that.
Well, you could always start a mother-daughter chapter of Together Women Rise with your daughters.
I would, honestly, they would be right there for that.
You can tell that I'm the membership director. There were just a couple of extra questions here. How are men involved in this project? We haven't heard too much about men.
Well, we kind of veered the conversation into
Right.
women.
Yeah.
So, yes. So the school systems are all built by men, actually. What we found was that and the men that built that very first system with Joseph, many of them still work with us today. So when we go into a community, there are 2 calls for employment. We bring in a team of trainers that do a call for employment for male masons and laborers. They build the school system. We do then a call for employment for women builders to build the residential systems. The residential systems take 6 weeks to build. The school system takes about 12 to 13 weeks to build. So men are very much a part of what we do. And I will say, at the end of the day, water is a woman's work. And so the greatest understanding of both the problem and the potential solution lie with her.
And we see that over and over again. Now, there was one question that someone told me that I had not responded to. Something about what about the distances traveled for buildings? So are the women needing to travel any great distances to go from building site to building site, or is it all sort of in their own area?
So what we do is we grow teams of women by districts. Or wards is probably a better, which we don't really have wards in this part of the world, but where a group of 25 women may work within, 10 to 15 villages. And then we work to transport materials, and then that team of women will actually work with village leadership, identify women in need, and then they'll rotate between those 10 to 15 villages over and over and over again until we achieve Joseph's goal of building on every house. So, and we we have multiple teams that work in that format in those areas. So, is the walk great? it certainly isn't as great as the Walk for Water. So, um, often we provide transportation. We provide all of the people that work with us with a midday meal. We have a 15-acre farm where all the food is grown, and then that's distributed out to each of the teams every week. That's also led by a group of women. Um, so yeah, so the distance between construction is not great, no.
Wonderful. And I'm sure it has an impact, on the men. I mean, we also need them as allies in, empowering women, and it has an impact on them to see what the women can accomplish in their communities.
I'm gonna tell you just a really brief story. We worked
Sure.
in a community that was mostly a Maasai village, and that tends to have some, pretty pretty linear and patriarchal ideology around it. And what was incredible was when we first started, there were reports of a lot of domestic violence within that village because the Women's Walk for Water was 16 hours a day. So she was gone that entire time. And once the systems were constructed, it was the men that came back to us that said, their fathers taught them to control their women. And through this project, they realized a sense of partnership and that they were teaching their sons that their women were their partners instead of their property. And so the water has an incredible effect on the family as a whole. It just has an incredible and a potential for generational change, not just for the women, but for how the women are viewed societally and for the men as well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So I'm thinking back to your video and all of the women clapping and waving and smiling at us. I had someone in the chat ask if I could unmute everyone, but if you want to just do it yourself, because they want to applaud you, Kelly, and all of the work that you're doing. And I want to thank you very, very much for being with us tonight and for the incredible work you're doing. And please say thank you to Joseph too, because it sounds like he's doing
He's
some
pretty
great
special
work.
guy.
Sounds like a special guy. So thank you again, Kelly. And just a couple of brief announcements before we head off for the night. Thank you everyone for being here. And please remember that we do depend on your donations to be able to support incredible projects and organizations like Save the Rain. So please, I'm going to put the link in the chat right now. Head over to there, copy it, head over to our website, and please support our programs and consider being a monthly giver where you donate on an automatic basis. With international aid being very uncertain right now, your monthly contribution can make a lasting impact for women and girls globally. And if you're already a monthly donor, thank you. If you're able to look at your donation and consider increasing. We are running a special campaign this month and over the next few weeks to encourage you to do just that. I want to invite everyone to join us. Saturday is International Women's Day, Saturday, March 8th, and we are going to be recognizing that at a special event that we're co-hosting with two of our other partners, Lendesa and Equimundo. Our event is Tuesday, March the 11th.
Did you miss Mama?
At
Did you
12
miss
p.m.
her?
Eastern. Oh, can I get you to just put yourself back on mute now. So International Women's Day event with Landesa and Equimundo, Tuesday, March the 11th at noon Eastern time. So it's a daytime event. We're going to be talking about a different type of support Together Women Rise does, which is addressing the root causes of global gender equality through transformation partnerships. Our panel is going to highlight Landesa's work on securing women's land rights and Equimundo's efforts to engage men and boys as allies in accelerating gender equality. So please check that out. You can go to our website, go to the Join Us tab, and right underneath there is events, and all of our events are listed there, including this International Women's Day special event. Please sign up. We have a lot of people attending already. It's going to be a great event. And, don't forget about our monthly webinars. We'll be meeting again in April and look forward to seeing everyone there. Thank you so much for being with us tonight and have a great evening.
Thank you again.